Welcome to a candidate forum featuring candidates for Elk Grove Council District 1 and 3. I'm Paula Lee, a member of the League of Women Voters of Sacramento County, and I'll be the moderator for today's forum. This forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Sacramento and the Sacramento Metropolitan Television Commission. It's being taped today for rebroadcast on Metro Cable 14. That'll be Sundays between now and Election Day. It's also being broadcast live here today from the Board of Supervisors meeting room. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization of women and men. Our mission is to encourage informed, active participation in government. The League does not support, oppose, or evaluate political parties or candidates. We do, however, after a very careful study, take positions on ballot measures and public policy issues. So you can find the League's positions on 11 of the 17 statewide ballot measures for this year at lwvc.org. lwvc.org. The format for today's forum will be as follows. Each candidate will make a 1 to 2 minute opening statement, and then the candidates will have about 90 seconds to respond to questions in rotating order. Finally, the candidates will have 1 to 2 minutes to make a closing statement. And now let me introduce the candidates running for City Council for Elk Grove in Districts 1 and 3. On the far right is Stephen Detrick, Maureen Kraft, and on my left, Darren Soon. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for running for office, and thank you for participating today in the forum. So let's begin with opening statements, and we'll begin with Stephen Detrick.
Good morning. I'm your Elk Grove City Councilman, Steve Detrick. Thank you to the League of Women for hosting the event today. I've lived in Elk Grove for 26 years with my wife, Jan. She's here in the audience today. Thank you. And we have raised our 3 sons that went to Elk Grove Public Schools, and I'm very proud of all 3 of our sons that have graduated from college. Professionally, I've been with PG&E for 42 years, and I'm currently the electric transmission engineering and estimating supervisor for Northern California. I work with city, county, state, and federal agencies on a daily basis. For the past 8 years, I've also been on the Elk Grove City Council and have served as the mayor for a year, vice mayor for 2 years, and councilman for 5 years. I've also worked with building relationships with the Elk Grove Chamber of Commerce, the Elk Grove Unified School District, the Cosumnes Community Service District, cities throughout the region, as well as state and federal elected officials and agencies. Prior to being elected in 2008, I was the chairman and spokesperson for the Elk Grove Coalition advocating proper planning for 3 years that represented the citizens of Elk Grove on several projects and community issues throughout our city. I've also coached several hundred young men and women in youth sports at all levels of water skiing, disabled water skiing, baseball, soccer, track, football, baseball. I'm a national competitor in the USA water skiing, and I've achieved national rankings as a senior judge and driver. I also like to fish, snow ski, run, cycle, paddleboard. The top 3 items that I will continue to champion are to get tough on crime, revive our local economy, and keep an honest and transparent government. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen Kraft.
Good morning. My name is Maureen Kraft, and I'm a Democrat running for Elk Grove City Council District 3. My husband and I have lived in Elk Grove for 9 years, and we are business owners. We have One Swing Golf Academy, which is focused towards training youth in the area of golf and also providing them with pathways to college for scholarships. I also am a human resources advisor to companies of all sizes. As a small business owner, I realize that Elk Grove can do a better job at attracting businesses. We need business-friendly jobs, quality jobs that pay living wages, and we need to create a place where people can work where they live and create a sustainable community. It is time for a change at City Hall. I've talked to neighbors who feel voiceless and not represented. I will host forums in my district and solicit continual input from the community. I am proposing a series of ethic reforms that will put backroom deals off the table. I will cap campaign contributions. I will also be a champion for public safety. Elk Grove is a diverse community. We're growing, and we need someone like myself who could stand up and be the voice for Elk Grove. Thank you.
Darren Soon.
Thank you, Paula. Good morning, everyone, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here today. My name is Darren Soon. I'm running for District 1. I was appointed to replace Assemblyman Jim Cooper when he won the Assembly by the rest of the current council. I'm looking to run for my first full term. I'm a civil engineer. I was born and raised in Sacramento, the Pocket Greenhaven area, but I have roots in the Delta, with my great-grandparents locating here in Cortland back in the 1920s. My wife and I have lived in Elk Grove with our 3 children for 15 years now. And as a civil engineer, I've worked in land use planning, transportation, and today water resources. I've been in worked with the Army Corps of Engineers as a project manager, and today I'm working on for the Department of Water Resources in flood management to expand the Yolo Bypass to achieve 200-year level protection in Sacramento and update the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan, a 30-year strategic document to reduce flood risk in the entire Central Valley. Before my time on the council, I was appointee by Don Natoli to serve on the Community Planning Advisory Council in the early 2000s, where I fought to preserve opportunities for job growth by preventing a rezone from office zone land to housing. And I worked on the 2009 Industry Working Group to comb through our fee program and increase economic development within our community. On the council today, I continue to look for opportunities to balance out our community, setting enabling conditions for job growth and employers to come to town by ensuring proper infrastructure is in place, and that our foundation of safe schools, our safe neighborhoods, good schools and good parks are maintained. And I look forward to implementing a robust multimodal transportation system that includes light rail extension down to Elk Grove, commuter buses, and a form of bus rapid transit within the city. I look forward to having your support in November. Thank you.
All right, we'll begin with the questions, and we'll do it in rotating order. So we're going to begin with Stephen Detrick. In 2014, the city purchased a 100-acre lot for $4.4 million near Grant Line and Waterman Roads. Early ideas for that lot included a soccer field complex and a soccer stadium. However, that lot remains vacant today. What should the City Council do with that property?
Thank you, Paul. You know, I was very involved with that, and there has been a lot of options for sports complex. And the goal is we have one of the highest level of sports in the west of the Mississippi. We have over 6,000 kids who play soccer, and we have over 2,000 young men and women who play baseball, as well as lacrosse and all the other field sports. So it's still the vision of the council to utilize that lot to put in a sports facility that'll take care of all field sports. We don't have enough fields in Elk Grove. That's why we champion that. Also, it's an economic driver, and we're continuing. The first proposal was extremely high when it came back. So we're looking at streamlining that and looking at options, how we can fund that project. And we continue to look forward to having one of the most dynamic field complexes in the state of California.
Maureen Kraft.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure.
Don't mind.
This summer, in 2014, the city purchased a 100-acre lot for $4.4 million near Grant Line and Waterman Roads. Early ideas for that lot included a soccer field complex and a soccer stadium. but it remains vacant. What should the city council do with that property?
I think that the city council should, one of our big areas actually is land usage. So my thoughts are that we look at the land and see what we actually have zoned for in Elk Grove, some of the projects that are coming up. And I would say that we would think about what would be the best usage for the land at that time. We are in a process right now of planned growth, and what we need to do is look at that land and systematically see what would be the best usage for it for the citizens of Elk Grove.
All right, Darren Soon.
Well, I think the important thing to note is we don't control the property. It's outside the city limits. And so the most important thing is to continue the process of annexation, bring the property within our control, and then examine its uses. We talked about soccer at one point in time. I'm an advocate to continue that discussion. Folks may or may not be aware, we have a great partnership with our school districts and our park district. And I talked about the foundation earlier for our community. And so we complement one another in terms of the park district. The park district provides certain sports amenities, and as Councilman Detrick mentioned earlier, we were looking to provide support for our soccer fields. So we need to analyze the financial feasibility of that use and determine if it's still viable going forward. But the most important thing is to ensure that it's within our city before we decide what we're going to do with it.
Thank you. We'll begin now with Maureen Kraft. This summer, the Wilton Rancheria made headlines when they announced they are considering a $400 million Indian casino for Elk Grove. Mm-hmm. This facility is proposed to be built next to the unfinished promenade at Elk Grove Mall. What is your opinion of this project and its location?
Well, I realize that there are some concerns about the casino coming to our community with the MOU having already been signed. What I will do is I will lead the council in working with the casino to mitigate and resolve any issues that they might have or that the citizens might have that arise about the casino. I believe that we have to look at some of the positives that may come out of the casino, which are first-class entertainment, fine dining, restaurants, spa, retail outlets. I also would hope that, if done correctly, that the casino would also provide quality living wage jobs. I believe that as the next council member, that I will work closely with the casino and the chief and also talk about what are the concerns. And in regards to location, I don't have an issue with the location at this time.
Darren Soon?
Well, I think the casino, and I'll call it Resort and Spa because it has a convention center, a hotel, entertainment components to there that I think a lot of the general public do find attractive. And so the casino in and of itself, I'm not opposed to. I'm definitely in favor of the Wilton Rancheria tribe trying to improve the livelihood of their members. As far as location, I would have preferred a second phase of the mall, but I had to examine the governance structure of which that decision was put before the council. It is not a decision for us to decide whether it comes or not. There's a private agreement between the mall developer and the casino, a willing seller and willing buyer, so a private purchase sale agreement. And then in terms of, what would be the ability to stop it from going to that location, as I analyzed that, as I researched, I looked at the communities of El Dorado County and Placer County, spoke to leaders there, and the their unsuccessful attempts in stopping things. I looked at 2011 lawsuit that the city of Elk Grove entered into to prevent Wilton Rancheria from going on their own lands. And so when I saw that, and other casinos throughout the state were allowed to go forward despite citizen referendums that opposed it, I determined that I wanted to make sure the city of Elk Grove got the best that it can for offsetting or mitigation of impacts caused by if a casino were to come to town. Thank you.
Stephen Detrick?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic with the Indian Casino. Yeah, everybody calls it the casino. It's the Wilton Rancheria facility that'll have a convention center, spa, casino, and a hotel. Coupled with the mall that's proposed there, it's roughly 1 million square feet. So the casino portion is only 10% of the total project. So there's been I think, an unfair emphasis put on the casino portion. I've had the opportunity to fly to 2 different comparable facilities, one in Nevada and one in Washington, and saw the projects, asked people who manage facilities in the adjacent area, and they all said that it's actually been a very good partner with the malls that they have. And so that's part of the decision I made when we looked at, we signed the memorandum of understanding, potentially if the Bureau of Indian Affairs approves this project. It is, as mentioned earlier, is not under the governance of the city of Elk Grove. It's under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And we've been working collaboratively with the tribe to, if they're able to get their project through, a memorandum of understanding that would potentially bring $132 million over the 20-year lifespan that the agreement is set up for. So we want to continue to keep that relationship open. And as far as the adult entertainment, being able to bring concerts, that would be ultimate for our city. Thank you.
All right, and sticking with land use issues, Darren Soon. This summer, the city built and opened a $3.6 million roundabout at the Sheldon-Waterman intersection. This project aimed to improve traffic flow there. Should the city build more roundabouts in other intersections across Elk Grove?
You know, I think in any type of traffic calming device, you need to look at the data and look at what is most appropriate. Roundabouts have proven to be very effective in reducing the severity of collisions. And these studies are across the board internationally. I've traveled to Australia and seen them in widespread use over there, and not only at the local level, but on their major arterials. And it's no doubt that the severity of accidents are greatly reduced. And so when you think about that, about saving lives, having lost a friend in college who died during a car accident with my wife was in the car, my girlfriend back then. So when you think about those things and the efficiency of these traffic circles and their ability to save lives, it can't be overlooked. And again, I'll just emphasize the type of traffic calming measure needs to be examined using the data at hand, traffic flow data, accident data, and so that would go into not just, it could be speed bumps, it could be red light cameras, which I know are also controversial, and traffic circles. Thank you.
Stephen Detrick?
Yeah, the roundabout that was put in at Sheldon and Waterman is just actually down the street from my home, and I use it quite frequently. Our son lives adjacent to that too. He uses it quite frequently. It's been a tremendous asset to move traffic. That used to be a four-way intersection with stop signs. And as was mentioned earlier, safety is the biggest concern. Either someone running a stop sign, and if somebody gets T-boned, high potential of fatality accident. The traffic calming measure, you can't come into those with the same speed you can come into a normal intersection. So there was a lot of skepticism when that went in, and now that it's in, I've heard nothing but positive comments from everybody, including the people that are skeptics. They said, we never thought that this would work, and they're extremely happy with it. As far as future roundabouts, we already have several in Elk Grove. There's another one actually just a little bit further east scheduled on Sheldon and Bradshaw. And that'll be actually one of the most interesting ones because it'll be a multi-lane roundabout. So we continue to use what is not only the national but the international standard for safety and improving traffic. And that intersection at Waterman and at Bradshaw and Sheldon is an extremely high traffic intersection. So there sometimes is 5 to 10 minute delays at that intersection. So this will definitely be a huge asset. And I know everybody in that part of the community is looking forward to it. Thank you.
Maureen Kraft.
Thank you. Having been a world traveler, I think it's about time that we have roundabouts. I've traveled to many different cities across the United States and abroad, and they have been using roundabouts for years to not only continue their flow of traffic, but as a safety measure. I think that we can continue to use the traffic data that will talk about impacting safety, and I just think that this is a great idea that we continue to increase roundabouts in our city as our city grows.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Stephen Detrick. The Suburban Propane Storage Facility in Elk Grove is home to North America's largest above-ground propane tanks. In the late 90s, they were target of an unsuccessful domestic terror attack. And over the last 20 or so years, there have been conflicting studies on the effects should an accidental or terrorist-induced explosion occur at the facility. So, are you comfortable building a possible youth soccer facility and 12-story casino hotel in such close proximity?
You know, it's interesting when you talk about public safety. I've had this discussion with my wife and several other people. You can go on the internet and you can come up with conflicting data. We're relying on the experts that testified and gave written arguments relative to this. So as far as safety, I'll leave that to the experts, and based on what they've provided to the city of Elk Grove, we found that within the acceptable range of what is happening. As far as the terrorist issues, Suburban Propane has done extreme security measures, including building a high dirt wall around it for protection, as well as cyclone fencing with barbed wire on top. So very comfortable. Is there potential that there could be? There's always a potential. You've seen worldwide that people have gone into parks, into buildings, and created some horrific crimes. Those are the kind of things that we're fortunate with our Elk Grove Police Department. They monitor, they work with the FBI, they work with all the other agencies, and for the most part, when somebody's doing improper things in Elk Grove, it's not if they get caught, it's when.
Maureen Kraft?
Can you repeat the question if you don't mind?
Sure. The Suburban Propane Storage Facility is home to North America's largest above-ground propane tanks, and in the 90s, they were a target of an unsuccessful domestic terror attack. Over the last 20 or so years, there's been conflicting studies on the effects should an accidental explosion occur or a terrorist-induced explosion. Are you comfortable building that youth soccer facility in a 12-story casino hotel in such close proximity?
I believe this is actually a Homeland Security issue. We have homes that are within 1 mile distance of those propane tanks. So based on our police department and also Homeland Security and any other security measures, I think that we are okay with having the youth soccer fields and those types of things close to the propane tank. I think we've taken the measures that are necessary already to look at what issues may arise and put plans in place that if for some reason something significant like a terrorist attack would happen, that we would have a plan to mitigate those issues.
Darren Soon?
Well, working in flood management, I view this as a risk management issue, and risk is defined as probability times consequence. And so you look at the probability of something happening there. The Court of Appeals determined that there was insignificant risk associated with the propane tanks. And as Councilman Detrick stated earlier, there's different studies that show different things, but that was the ruling of our courts. Having said that, we also deal with residual risk management. And so as Ms. Kraft articulated earlier, having an emergency action plan for residual risk management would be appropriate. And I'm would be open to also looking to what would it take to relocate those tanks for future use. We have the mall already that's built, and at least the infrastructure for the mall is already there, and we expect the mall to be open soon. So the blast radius that was shown to us earlier encompasses that area as well. So there's a lot of things that have already taken form, and I think, you know, not doing anything in that area in the future is unrealistic, but we do need to look at residual risk management, and then maybe other more extreme measures, to exploring other extreme measures such as relocating the propane tank site. Thank you.
Maureen Kraft. Elk Grove City Manager Laura Gale recently decided to promote Assistant Police Chief Brian Noblet to Police Chief. This decision was made a month after Chief Robert Lehner announced his retirement. He applied for the position of Spokane Police Chief and was interviewed by 4 citizen panels. So the question is, should Elk Grove city officials continue the practice of promoting Elk Grove Police Department staff to chief, or should they have citizen panels recommend the next chief?
That is a great question. And it has also been brought to my attention as well with the residents in my area that I have spoken with. It is necessary that we hear the voice of our residents. The police chief is one of the most critical positions that we could have in Elk Grove. Elk Grove is one of the most diverse cities in the United States. And right now, what we're actually facing is a police department that does not reflect our community. Currently, we have 135 police officers. 5 of them are black. There are no women of color on the police department. And now we have a new police chief who I've had the opportunity of having a brief conversation with in regards to the areas of diversity. I feel confident that he is skilled to take on this task, and I feel that with myself on the council, that I'm someone who can move this agenda forward. However, we go back to the residents having a voice and feeling voiceless. The current council did not take the opportunity to have the residents speak to this new police chief and feel comfortable with his appointment.
Darren Soon?
Right. Thank you. Well, let me just say that we are one of the most diverse cities in the nation, 7th in a population of over 100,000, and our police force is well integrated into the community. It's very unique. It's a model for other communities. Anybody who's encountered our officers knows this. At festivals, on the street, we have coffees with cops. They have done a great job in integrating into our community, and I'm very proud of what they do for us. I will say that in that when you look at the diversity, it does not reflect the community. I have personally made those comments known, and they are taking measures to correct that, but it takes time. It takes time to recruit, to hire, to train, and so I believe changes will be forthcoming. Having said all that, continuity and leadership, when you have such a good police force and culture, we've heard from people within the force that complement the leadership of soon-to-be Chief Noblet, and so those conditions are are only why I would support Chief Noblett assuming that role. Continuity and leadership of a program that's already doing well, and the support of the people that he would lead. Thank you.
Stephen Detrick.
So the police chief is a direct report to the city manager, and that's who made the appointment of that position. Chief Noblett was handpicked by the current Chief Lehner several years ago to come on to the city of Elk Grove, and Chief Noblett has been very, very involved in the community. We've talked about the issues of diversity. One of the problems is when there's nobody in the academy that matches the diversity of your city, it makes it a lot more difficult. So we're continually trying to encourage people from all ethnicities to apply to get the credentials so we could hire them. We're not going to hire somebody just based on their ethnicity. We're going to hire the best people for the job, and we want to get the best people in Elk Grove, if not the region, to come to Elk Grove and participate. As far as the decision to go keep it internal, external, I think you always have to look internal and look for opportunities. And but you still, the same thing, you need to hire the best person for the job. I've known Chief Noblett for many years now, and I've worked collaboratively with him with the beat meetings, going to the Coffee with the Cops. Those are just all little things that we do. Neighborhood watch program. We continue on a regular basis or out in the community with the council members and the police department, networking at all the community events as well. So I think it was an excellent choice bringing on Chief Noblett.
Can I expound on that? Do you mind?
15 seconds.
Okay, thank you. As it relates to Chief Noblett, like I said, I have all the confidence that he will do a great job. When we're talking about the areas of diversity, are we saying that we don't have enough qualified minority officers that are already in place that could work with the city of Elk Grove? I think that's a farce. I believe that just like the current chief, he was part of a national search, and what happened was they allowed the city in which he was interviewing for to allow the community to come in and get to better know him. And I think Elk Grove should have done the same thing. Thank you.
Darren Soon. Over the past decade, city leaders have been addressing an imbalance in the Elk Grove economy, where most local residents work outside Elk Grove due to the low amount of local jobs. What can the city do to boost the amount of local jobs in Elk Grove?
Well, thank you for that. You know, the role of government, we're not able to create jobs, but we can set enabling conditions that give the greatest opportunity for employers to locate here. And what we do is, first we set a foundation built upon safe neighborhoods, good parks, good schools, and then we build upon that to attract not just the employer, but the employer's family, recreational amenities, executive housing, so that the employer and his family want to live here, they want to educate their children here, and they have fun things to do on the weekends. You know, the boss generally likes the shortest commute, so if you create a community that can attract not just the employer but the employer's family, and you couple that with obviously infrastructure, having the appropriate infrastructure in place where the buildings, at this time we don't even have a place where a good sized building, office building could be built. There's very few of those locations. And then you put the appropriate infrastructure in place, and you have also policies, business-friendly policies, efficient processes where they can get their approvals in a timely manner, and certainty within their business operations. Those are all the things that we can do to set enabling conditions to attract jobs. Thank you.
Stephen Detrick.
Yeah, we definitely have an imbalance in our jobs to housing ratio, and we've been working on that. We've closed the gap, but we still have a long way to go. The biggest problem we have is we have 25,000 state workers that leave Elk Grove every day. I sit on the subcommittee to bring state and federal jobs to Elk Grove. In collaboration with Mayor Gary Davis and I, working on that subcommittee, we were able to get 1,800 jobs with correctional health care And that was a huge, not just for the region, but statewide. There was nothing like that had taken place during that time frame. So that was a huge coup to fill vacant buildings, and then have actually expanded and built multiple buildings since then. One time Elk Grove was one of the toughest places to do business with. 2 out of the last 5 years, we've been rated the #1 city in the region to do business with. We've cut fees. We've lowered the tax bases and put incentives in place, and made everything is put together an ombudsman to represent all of our departments. And we've worked with all of our sister agencies that are not under the jurisdiction of the city of Elk Grove to help cut their fees and streamline the process for coordination to make it easier and easier. So we'll continue to do that. We have an economic development department that has helped reach out not only regionally, but state, federally, and internationally to work on bringing more jobs here.
Maureen Kraft.
With my economic development corporation background, I do want to work directly hand in hand with them to bring forth jobs to Elk Grove. We currently see every day 60% of our workforce leave and go elsewhere. But we have to believe that our workforce would like to stay in Elk Grove and work where they live. We actually have to stop as a city contracting out for jobs and for business. We are a city of privatization and contracts at this point. So it is my goal to work to bring living wage jobs to Elk Grove, to also work with the workforce that we have in place, and also train them and bring competitive wage jobs to the city of Elk Grove. Once again, we are a growing city, and we need to have a workforce that reflects the city that we serve.
Thank you. Stephen Detrick. What is your position on Sacramento Transportation Authority's Measure B, which will raise sales taxes countywide by 1/2 cent for 30 years?
Well, I've been on record that I didn't support the idea of raising any taxes, whether Measure B or the 0.5% sales tax in Elk Grove. I did recently personally sign on to support the efforts going on, because, as was mentioned earlier, that we do have a deficit in our roadways. This is one of the only ways that we can do that. And we actually, to be a regional player, we put our 0.5 cent sales tax on the back burner to try to help Measure B pass. So even though I'm not a pro-tax person, I think right now there's no other option that we have but to work regionally to get this passed so we can take care of the infrastructure, starting out with the term fixing potholes and then expanding on over the next several years to resurface roads that were never forecasted in the plan as far as having an income stream. The newer sections of the city have that, the older sections don't, and those are the ones that are starting to fail. So in concept, I support Measure B, although I'm not in favor of taxes. Sometimes you have no alternative. And by putting it out to the voters that are the ones making the decision on whether they want to accept that tax, not me as a council member putting the burden of a decision I'm making myself.
Maureen Kraft.
I am in support of Measure B, but however, Measure B is not going to solve Elk Grove's roadway problems. We are already $8 to $9 million behind every year on our roadway construction. So I believe that although Measure B will pass, or I will hope that it will pass, that we still have a long way to go to work on our roads and to provide safe thoroughfares for the residents of the Elk Grove area.
And Darren Soon.
Well, I don't think it's any big secret that nationally our infrastructure is aging, whether it's roads or levees, spillways, dams. And so we're going to have problems not just in Elk Grove but across the nation. In fact, Elk Grove being a newer city, we have a competitive advantage in that a lot of our infrastructure is in relatively good condition. Having said that, specifically to roads, there is approximately an $8 million shortfall in maintenance of roads that we hope to to mitigate with the passing of Measure B. I'm also proud to say I advocated for including a component funding for light rail extension into Elk Grove as part of that measure as well. And so this measure will help us continue to maintain our infrastructure and hopefully improve it as we go forward, improve regional connectedness, which will then also support job creation in the future. Thank you.
Maureen Kraft. As Elk Grove proposes facilities such as the Aquatic Center, much of the financing comes from uncapped Mello-Roos fees imposed on residents, particularly in one area of the city, Laguna Ridge. Do you think it's fair that residents in this area pay for a facility that will be enjoyed by all residents of Elk Grove? And if it's not fair and you'd like to see the project completed, how would you finance that project?
Well, I think if it's a facility that the whole city is going to use, I think it should be spread out amongst all the residents of Elk Grove. And your second part to that question?
Well, if you don't think it's fair, how would you finance it?
Well, I think that what has happened is that when we look at the budget and we look at the way city finances have been used, I think that we're just used to doing the same things all the time. I think what we need to do is, one, take a step back and look at our budget and see what we can do and what's in the budget to help with the financing of that project. And as a new city council member, I would like to take the opportunity to look at our budget and how we use our finances amongst all projects and see how we can go about using our finances better.
Darren Soon?
Post Prop 13 and incorporations of cities post Prop 13 made construction of and financing of infrastructure very difficult. We couldn't rely or didn't have access to as great a property tax revenue as other cities that were incorporated prior to Prop 13. And so Mello-Roos financing is just one of these components now. The facilities that go into those districts, they are something that is specific to that district, and so it is not necessarily fair. I don't think it's fair that residents in a small part of town go to a great deal or pay for facilities that we all use. Having said that, I'd be willing to look towards other options to finance and make it more equitable. That's the only way we're going to get a lot of these amenities in place that I spoke of earlier to attract employers. Our aquatic center, the civic center, senior center, and civic center, and so. I do appreciate the complexity of that situation. So I would look for other revenue opportunities.
Stephen Detrick?
Yeah, do I think it's fair? Absolutely not. But again, as was mentioned, Prop 13's kind of what put Mello-Roos on the table, because there was no other mechanism to be able to improve your city in this kind of way. So the people, when they bought into their homes, there was the Mello-Roos that was attached there. This was one of the items that was talked about, that this is supposed to be the jewel of our city. And within this boundary of the Civic Center, the Aquatic Center was one of the ones named specific items that would be from the Mello-Roos, paid from that district. So everybody knew going in that was going to be there. One of the ways that we could it won't make it totally fair, but I think what I've proposed to our team at the city is that we do a discount to people who live in that district to be able to use the facility, and you charge a premium to everybody else who lives outside the district, and then even expand it more. If you live outside of Elk Grove, you even pay a higher fee because you're not contributing at all at that point. So that would be my recommendation on that. The whole Mello-Roos is a very, very tough issue. Again, I'm not a big believer of it, but when it was voted in and people agreed when they bought their homes, they knew what they were what the expectation was. So I'm just there to support what they agreed to when they purchased their homes and try to build the nicest community with the nicest amenities possible.
All right, before we go to closing remarks, I'd like to give you all another opportunity to address the diversity issue of the Elk Grove Police Department. You covered some of it when we talked about the chief and whether citizen panels should be used to select the chief, but there is a specific question here, and I felt like you didn't really have quite enough time, so 30 seconds to 1 minute. Elk Grove is recognized as one of the nation's most racially and ethnically diverse cities. However, the Elk Grove Police Department does not reflect that diversity, with the majority of sworn officers being white. Do you think this staff of overwhelmingly white officers affects how our laws are enforced? And do you think staffing, a more diverse staffing in the police department is important, and how would it be accomplished? We'll begin with Darren.
Me? Okay, thank you. I look at the data at hand. I mean, I have not seen a huge amount of incidents where enforcement of the laws that we have any type of racial bearing. So I don't. And by the way, as of over the last same year period, ending September 30, crime has been down. Violent crimes are down 10%, and burglaries are down 39%. So the effectiveness of the police department has been irrespective of race. Having said that, I think we do want to continue to recruit more diversity within the department, but they need to meet the qualification, the criteria that we've held so dearly, that has made us such an effective program or police department that is recognized throughout the state. So, thank you.
Stephen Detrick.
Yeah, we are definitely one of the most diverse cities, and that was one of the topics when we had the special meeting with the chief, and where the public was invited, the media was invited. That was actually one of the topics. Do we have diversity that matches our city? No, we don't. We have a long way to go, but we've come a long way. We're more diverse now than we were 10 years ago. So we're going to work on recruiting and actually encouraging local residents of all the different nationalities to be able to go to the academies and get certified so that we can hire them. So that is a number one goal for the city council, the city manager, and our new police chief.
Maureen Kraft.
Paula, I guess the thing that stands out to me by the two current council members is that we don't have qualified, diverse officers. That is a farce. That is a farce. As I had spoken with Chief Noblet, I talked to him specifically about diversity on the police force. He said that he needs help because we have nothing in place right now that recruits officers. The two current council members here are saying that we have a police force of 135 people, 5 of them being black officers, no representation of minority women officers across the board, but we need to attract diversity. How do we do that? My plan is to work concurrently with the police chief with my human resources background and diversity background to show him how to recruit and how to work with people of color. It is a necessity. Once again, our population is that we have 28% Asian, 11% black, and 17% Latino Americans. So we're looking at a majority minority community. We are going to have to jump in as city council members and take this upon ourselves to work within the community and work on recruitment. Thank you. Sorry.
May I please respond to that real briefly?
Just very briefly.
Yeah. So I didn't say we didn't have qualified candidates. In fact, I think I stated earlier, I made a point to point out that we need to do a better job recruiting diversity. All I'm saying is that of the candidates that apply, qualifications must still be a driver, and they will be. I'm not saying there are not qualified candidates. We are in the process of working towards it, but it will take time.
I think the implication, Darren, is that we don't have people of color who are qualified to be police officers in Elk Grove.
I never said that.
Okay,
No,
thank
and I
you.
don't mean that either.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it's time for closing remarks, and we're going to mix it up a little bit and begin with Darren Soon.
Okay. Well, again, I want to thank everyone for listening and watching, and the opportunity to be here today. Again, just to articulate. I mean, I rearticulate my qualifications. I mean, as a civil engineer who's dealt with land use planning, transportation, water resources, infrastructure. I mean, as a city, these are the challenges that we have going forward: land use planning, transportation, infrastructure, sustainability in our community. So I really look forward to your support. I believe I'm the most qualified candidate to do that, and thank you for listening and watching.
Stephen Detrick.
Yeah, the most recent City of Elk Grove survey gave a 79% approval rating of all of our services. The last FBI report ranked Elk Grove as one of the safest cities in the United States with over 100,000 residents, and #1 in the Sacramento region for cities over 100,000. We've completed 100 major projects of $250,000 or more, and we've invested $400 million in public works since the city began in 2000. We have doubled our workforce since 2000, with close to 50,000 employed in Elk Grove, with one of the largest employers that I helped champion and mentioned earlier, the 1,800 workers at the Correction Healthcare. All the work has to be done, and all the work that needs to be done will be with the relationships that I've built and the institutional knowledge that I have from experience of 42 years of PG&E and 8 years as a councilman, and being involved in our community for over 26 years. I will continue to be at all the formal public meetings for open discussion on the general plan, transit, city budget, Elk Grove Police Department beat meetings, neighborhood watch meetings, neighborhood summits, as well as weekly informal meetings with various coffee shops across the city and the region. I love Elk Grove, and please show your continued support and honor me with your vote for Steve Detrick for Elk Grove City Council. Thank you.
Maureen Kraft.
Well, I want to take this opportunity to thank the League of Women Voters and also Metro Cable 14 for hosting this forum. Thank you very much for giving us a platform to express our ideas. I too love Elk Grove. We are a city of tons of untapped potential. We are a growing community that is rich in diversity. We want to be thought of as more than a bedroom community. I want Elk Grove to be a place where families live, work, and play. I want to preserve Elk Grove's beautiful open spaces while growing the economy and creating jobs. Now is the time for change. Now is the time to elect me as your new council member. My opponent has had 8 years to let you know what he was able to do. He's not held public meetings. He's not enlisted your comments. He's left you voiceless. As your next councilwoman, I want to deliver high-quality city services by creating a professional city workforce. I will reach out to neighborhoods that have been neglected over the years. We will make ethics and campaign reform a priority. I will work with groups to strengthen programs for the youth, and I will manage economic development and growth by working with the county and our neighboring cities at a regional level, That is why I'm endorsed by Mayor-elect Darrell Steinberg and also Assemblymember Kevin McCarty and the AFL-CIO and many other organizations. Thank you. I respectfully request your vote at the ballots on November 8th. Thank you.
And on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Sacramento County and the Sacramento Metropolitan Television Commission, thank you very much for participating in this forum today.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the volunteers who helped make the forum possible. This forum will be rebroadcast every Sunday beginning at 12:15 between now and Election Day. And the League of Women Voters has this terrific one-stop source for voter information on candidates and ballot measures. You can look up your ballot by your address. go to votersedge.org. VOTERSEDGE, votersedge.org. And the League welcomes both women and men as members, and we welcome you to join us. Most importantly, vote November 8th if you haven't already voted absentee, and help make democracy work. Thank you.